Hello, and today we will be assembling one of the most budget PCs for gaming on socket 1366. Do not confuse 1366 and 1356, they are very different and incompatible with each other. If with 1356 most of the people have already figured out from my videos, then 1366 remains a dark topic. Like what is it? A socket for enthusiasts, a bridge in fire, the younger brother of the 775th, but everything is not so simple. Let's look at what are the processors on this socket. Of those stones that may be of interest to budget gamers now, the weakest are Core i7 on the Bloomfield core, by today's standards, weak and very hot. They have a process technology 45 nanometers and these processors have no ring bus, and it's unprofitable to take them on all-E. Despite that, Core i7 is loud name, more powerful and interesting to buy are Xeons, and then if simple to say, they can be with the letters Z, X, L and W. There is practically no difference between E and X, except for the higher frequencies of X CPUs, they are not very hot and powerful enough, and everyone has a ring bus. Most of the dual processors are also built on Bloomfield, like the younger Core i7 and have a horsepower consumption. The processors are low frequency and energy efficient analogs of the processors I have already mentioned. There are still of course the senior Core i7 on Gulf Town, but the price tag on them is absolutely crazy. It's good to have a table with the characteristics of all processors and their approximate performance, such as this one, link is in the description. From all this it turns out that it is best to take right now X processor, for example 5650 for about $10, but I went a more interesting route and took X5667. Wanted a processor with a higher clock speed for higher single-threaded performance, still 6C 12 tons I already have in 2420 V2. Motherboard X58 Atermiter, which actually turned out to have i5520 chipset, and so I will open a dispute, maybe we'll win some bucks. But not only that, I have a claim to the board. Firstly, because of the large radiator on the bridge, ring that included to Mobo can't be put. Snowman's ring can be put, but it is nearly impossible to put on the bottom. I let Snowman to tower stood like normal people. Someone breaks ribs, and I have made it easier, put ventilator down. And on this board, Turbo Boost does not work, the board does not allow you to set a multiplier corresponding to the Turbo Boost frequency. This is the BIOS feature. You have to sit in stock, but if I took 5650 whose frequency is 2.66 GHz, would be upset even more. Well, the Snowman with 2 heat pipes and 3-pin fan is enough for 95-watt CPU. Well, more about the stone. X5667, 4 cores 8 threads, Westmere 32 nanometers, 12 meters of porridge, stock 3.06 GHz, boost 3.46, must be, but so far I have not solved it. By the way, today we have 8 GB of memory in a single channel, so, just for fun, at a frequency of 1333, you cannot go higher. Video card Asus Strix RX 474. Bench CPU Z shows 1419 multi-thread, 277 single-thread, in a multi-thread it turns out hardly more than for example i5 3470. But what the cache and memory test writes, the numbers are slightly more than 0. See what chipset is written? Not X58 at all. Into temperatures. The bridge, this one here radix under the socket, is heated strongly, 70 degrees or more. The CPU in stress warms up to 65 degrees. To cool the bridge, I just put it between the card and Snowman fan, and thus the bridge do not get hot. In addition, it creates an air corridor between the fan blowing on the bridge with the Snowman blowing in the power supply, and this is my new Cooler Master Elite V3 500 watt. And the power supply is already blowing out of the case. At the same time, the line fan cools the text highlight of the card, and now it less often reaches a temperature of 50 degrees and, accordingly, less often turns on the fans. and also has a positive effect on the temperature of the processor. Do you think it's all noisy and crackling? No, fans are new and only heard how they blow, but not chirping or something. In games today we will test CPU and 8 GB in single channel, so play HD on low. The download of the card is incorrect, so look, if the card eats less than 80 watt, so it is not loaded in 100. Recording through OBS, hardware encoder, HD and 30 FPS, no load from recording to CPU. Apex Legends, everything is cut down in settings, and here we get 80-90 FPS on average. During active actions it can sync to 70, but without any freezes. The deadly number, Cyberpunk 2077, HD and low, fidelity is off. And here we have CPU bottleneck, the game freezes in crowded locations, and the action generally puts the statistics of rare events to 0. Control, HD and low as I said, the average FPS in this game, 70, and 0.1% is about 58. No freezes, the gameplay is smooth and enjoyable, so in 1080p at medium stable 50 FPS I will get without problems. Mafia Remake, the settings are the same. In a city filled with people, the average FPS is about 50, there are some drops to 40. And again, no problems with performance. My favorite game benchmark, Assassin's Creed Unity, still reveals the dance of the processor. In this game the superiority of the Xeon i5520 V2 is clearly noticeable, which easily give out a stable 70 FPS. On the X5667 below 30 does not fall and is already good. Watch Dogs 2 is a CPU-intensive game, we should test it. We're muddying and driving, and basically I've seen at least 32 frames. But that's only if you can drive and shoot right in city, out of city or without a tail. FPS grows up to 50. Resident Evil 3 Remake, DirectX 12. FPS is high, but sometimes run freezes associated more with the HDD, a laptop 500GB VD Blue LPCX, because there can't be freezes from RAM, which is busy a little more than half. The two-threaded game Far Cry New Dawn goes like this. The fight of freaks in the swamp drops the average FPS to 40. Completely ruined the optimization, the fifth Far Cry would easily give out 60 frames. Well, Red Dead Redemption 2 fake pleases us with a smooth FPS, but then it begins to periodically stutter with a drop in the load on the CPU, this is clearly a lack of RAM speed, and not a problem of CPU. To prove this, we will also run in 1080p on the recommended ones, the record also increased to 1080p. Exactly the same peaks. 2 bars on 4 GB would solve the problem, but do you believe, I'm too lazy to poke RAM for one game, even for Game of the Year. I'm surprised all of these games are almost neutral to memory speed. In general 1366 is alive and well, but not only me realized that, because prices are rising, I hope to solve turbo boost issue, anyway I'll keep you in touch, bye.